For radio, get over there.
Order. Now call the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to order. My name is Kelly Regan. I'm the MLA for Bedford Basin, and I'm the chair of this committee. A reminder to all in attendance today to please place your phones on silent. And we'll introduce the committee now. To my left, Mr. Palmer. Thank you.
In case you didn't remember who I was. Good morning, everybody. MLA Chris Palmer from Kings West. Nice to see you.
Hold it. Don't know what's going on. I think that's my granddaughter somewhere around there.
MLA Taggart.
Sorry. Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North, and welcome.
MLA McDonald.
Morning. Johnny McDonald, MLA for Hants East.
MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. I'm Melissa Sheehy-Richard, the MLA for Hants West.
MLA LeBlanc.
Good morning. Susan LeBlanc, MLA for Dartmouth North.
MLA Lachance.
Lisa Lachance, MLA for Halifax, Sable Island.
MLA Nicol.
Laura Lee Nicol, MLA Cole Harbour, Dartmouth.
MLA Barkhouse.
Good morning, Danielle Barkhouse, MLA for the beautiful Chester St. Margaret's.
And I would note that officials from the Auditor General's Office, Legislative Council Office, and Legislative Committee's Office are in attendance as well. On today's agenda, we have officials with us from the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Department of Public Works, and the Joint Regional Transportation Agency with respect to municipal grant funding and strategic initiatives. So I'm going to ask the witnesses to introduce themselves. I'll call on them, but we'll begin with the witness on my far right. So first, Mr. Stuckless.
Hi, Hardy Stuckless, Director of Municipal Infrastructure
For Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Ms. Pottie Bunge.
Good morning. Valerie Pottie Bunge, Associate Deputy Minister, Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Deputy Rafuse.
Good morning. Byron Rafuse, Deputy Minister of Department of Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Ms. Doucett.
Rebecca Doucett, the Director of Municipal Finance for the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Ms. Saurette.
Diane Saurette, Chief Operating Officer for the Department of Public Works.
Deputy Hackett.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Peter Hackett, Deputy Minister of Public Works.
Mr. Benoit.
Good morning, Chair, Committee. Dave Benoit, President and Chief Executive of Build Nova Scotia.
And last but not least, up against the wall, Mr. Peck.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Peck. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Joint Regional Transportation Agency.
Thank you. I would invite Deputy Rafuse to make opening remarks.
Good morning, Chair and members to the committee. Thank you for inviting us here to speak to you about municipal grant funding and strategic initiatives. I can tell you that this is an incredibly busy time for my department, especially as it relates to infrastructure, housing, and municipal affairs, so I look forward to speaking to you about that work that we have underway. You've met the team here from the department, so I won't repeat that, but we will do our best as a team to answer your questions today. Chair, we are in a time of great growth and opportunity here in Nova Scotia. For the first time in decades, people are choosing Nova Scotia as their first place to live, study, raise their families, and build their businesses. We know that to really capitalize on this growth, we need to overcome some big challenges, housing and infrastructure being two notable ones. We also know that our 49 municipalities are key partners when it comes to addressing these challenges and opportunities head on. And we acknowledge that our municipalities, to be successful, need our support. We know there are gaps, and over the past 2 years, we've been laser focused on filling those gaps. We've done this by doubling the funding flow to municipalities earmarked for infrastructure upgrades. This was done with a one-time doubling of the municipal financial capacity grant in 2021 to the tune of $62 million. We followed that investment with the introduction of 2 grant programs, the Sustainable Services Growth Fund in 2022 and the Municipal Capital Growth Program, which was announced last November. These programs aim to fill infrastructure gaps for things like water and sewer and work to better position municipalities to address critical needs in their communities, especially as it relates to housing. Chair, we know that people want to come to Nova Scotia, but it's imperative they also want to stay. And we know that in order for people to stay, they have to feel a sense of community. They need to feel safe, accepted, and have access to services and know when emergencies hit, resources are there. We acknowledge this, and this is why we've increased our funding to our grant programs, like the Emergency Services Provider Fund that provides equipment and training for first responders groups to the tune of $1.5 million for 80 projects this year. That is why we are investing in flood mitigation programs and increasing access to grants for beautification to make our communities whole. I will leave it to my colleagues at Public Works to elaborate on the ICIP program, or the Investment in Canada Infrastructure Program, but my department takes great pride in administering that agreement across Nova Scotia, bringing 140 significant infrastructure projects to life for residents. These projects absolutely support housing development, but they also provide safe drinking water and wastewater treatment that build strong, vibrant communities and support continual economic growth. Before I conclude, I want to acknowledge our municipal financial reporting practices here in Nova Scotia. We are national leaders when it comes to the information that we give our municipalities and how we report on the health of their finances to the financial condition indicators. We have provided some of that information and advanced on that reporting to this committee, and we will be happy to answer your questions that you have. I will conclude here as I know my colleagues would like to, to say a few words. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Hackett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for having us here today. And thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak on with regard to municipal funding. My name is Peter Hackett, Deputy Minister of Department of Public Works, and you've met my team here with me this morning. I'm pleased to be sitting here today beside our colleagues, the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, and Build Nova Scotia. The Department of Public Works is an important part of the provincial government, and our work has an impact on all Nova Scotians. We may be primarily known for building and maintaining our network of safe roads and bridges, but our staff do a lot more than just that type of infrastructure. We also make sure students have modern places to learn, and healthcare facilities are built to help healthcare providers give the best care possible. We see our projects through from start to finish. In some cases, that involves everything from land acquisitions to planning, design, construction, and maintenance. We know how important these projects are to the municipalities, and that's why we take our role very seriously. One of the main ways we support municipalities is by advocating on their behalf for funding. We do a lot of work with the Investment in Canada Infrastructure Program, and the result is billions of dollars worth of investments in infrastructure throughout the province. Municipalities have benefited from projects like transit, active transit, energy efficiency, renewable electricity, water treatment, sport, recreation, and libraries. These are projects that make municipalities stronger and make people's lives better. They only happen when we work together, and I look forward to our continued collaboration with our municipal partners. Thank you very much, and with that, we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, the time is 9:08. We'll begin with the Liberal Caucus. Ms. Nicol, your time will end at 9:28. Ms. Nicol.
Thank you, and good morning. It's nice to see you here this morning. Some of you I've met in my previous role on Municipal Council in Halifax. And so, of course, I'm going to start my questioning with Mr. Peck right away to the Joint Regional Transportation Association. Our roads currently can't keep up with the significant increase of congestion across the province. As you know, I'm from Cole Harbour, and on any day, just getting through Portland Street's a good day. And so therefore it's way over capacity. The government plans to double the population, and some opinions maybe triple, but with no plans to expand the infrastructure needed to support more Nova Scotians, as we welcome them. What is the JRTA's plan to keep with the pace of immigration? and for our roads, and what geographical area will be priority number one? What is, please identify the pressure currently being focused at, what you look at first.
CEO Peck.
Thanks very much for the question. I'll attempt to respond to the question in several ways. So the first is the JRTA, which is the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, which I have the fortunate ability and the fortunate opportunity to be the CEO for the JRTA. And if everyone's okay, I'll refer to it as the JRTA instead of the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. And I'm blessed with a professional team like no other. We do recognize that government's goal is to double the population. Currently, we're over 1 million and aiming for 2 million by 2060. So we're seeing growth. It's not exponential, but we're seeing growth in Nova Scotia like no other time in history. And we recognize that the transportation is challenged because of that growth. I'm a user of the transportation network in 4 ways. I take the bus, I run or walk, I take my car. I forget what the 4th one is. Gee, bike. Yeah, I bike. So I'm used to all modes and the challenges with all modes, and in particular vehicular. You're right. The transportation networks are challenged, and we need it. I think now is the perfect time for the JRTA to be doing the work that it's doing. One of the things that we're tasked with is doing a joint regional transportation plan that involves 15 out of the 49 municipalities that will look at data.
MLA Nicol?
The question was basically, I follow JRTA. I'm going on Zoom tomorrow night to sort of see where you are and everything else, encourage more people to do that. But so what, I just wanted you to actually say what's your priority going to be, because HRM has an integrated mobility plan that was to be created, and there were priorities in that. Is that going to be the same priority? Because when the JRTA was created, very much the focus was HRM, but now it's expanded to an hour outside of HRM. So I'm just, again, funneling it into what is your priority.
CEO Peck.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to be a little more succinct. Our plan is to develop a regional transportation plan for HRM and 14 other municipalities that I would call the 1-hour commutership. So Halifax or HRM to Truro and beyond, HRM to the Valley, Berwick, and HRM to Bridgewater. Our plan is due to be delivered to government in November of 2024, which is this year. Our priorities are the movement of people and the movement of goods. And when I say the movement of people, I mean both, it's multimodal in nature, so vehicular and active transportation are 2 components associated with people, and I referenced the movement of goods. The priorities are that of a plan. It's to move the movement of people and the movement of goods in an efficient, safe, and responsible manner. And it's not to dismiss any of the good work that's been done. You'd referenced the integrated mobility plan that we're well aware of. And look, municipalities are doing great work in the field of transportation, but what we want to do is to take that great work they're doing and blend it with today's science and today's knowledge, and to look at the future needs of this province within this regional area. So those would be what I would capture as our priorities.
MLA Nicol?
Thank you, and I applaud you for using more than one mode of transportation, but that is not the norm in Nova Scotia. So I know we hear all the time that people would use transit if it was more reliable and if there were more routes, especially from the suburbs. So it's also better for the environment to move people and take public transit. HRM is talking about bus rapid transit, which would remove a lane coming down Portland Street, but yet there's no plan looking forward perhaps for how that's going to impact, because you can dream that people will say, well, the bus is moving by a lot faster than I am, stuck in traffic, but I don't see that transferring into actual transit ridership improvement. So I just wondered, does the department or the JRTA have a plan to increase funding or support to improve the infrastructure for the transit systems in HRM and CBRM and other municipalities that you're taking into your scope?
CEO Peck.
Thanks for the question. In terms, just to respond to the funding aspect, there currently exists funding to municipal government in various capacities. There currently isn't a singular financial package with respect to the work of the JRTA. But what I can say is that we're working closely with the federal government, and I may look to my colleague Diane Saurette to expand a little bit more on this. So I think we're all familiar with the fact that the federal government has announced a $3 billion transit fund. And some of the components associated with that transit fund, Nova Scotia is really, really well aligned, and I'm really proud to say that we're ahead of the curve in terms of where we are in securing funding with the federal government. So this $3 billion, uncertain in terms of what portion of that Nova Scotia will receive, but we have to complete a regional transportation plan, which will be a requirement of the federal government funding. We have to have a governance structure in place that the JRTA has already. So we're ahead of the curve in terms of meeting the requirements or the expected requirements for the funding of the federal government. So,
Emily Nicol.
Thank you, and it's all great. I mean, so I was 12 years on council. Ahead of the curve does not sit with me, I'm sorry. We've been waiting for this for a long time. I remember the PTIF fund that was millions of dollars from the feds, then that, you know, a lot of it didn't materialize in improvements to transit with HRM. So, but speaking of transit, so we know the Dartmouth to Halifax ferry is essential for traveling in HRM. In 2021, the previous government announced a Bedford-Halifax ferry, which would have a huge impact on the congestion. We're hearing a lot about it in the news right now. So I just wondered, what is the update for a new ferry, and can you tell us when we will actually have a new ferry in Bedford?
CEO Peck?
Sorry.
Or do you want to send that to Ms. Saurette?
I do.
Okay. Ms. Saurette.
Hi there. Thank you for the question. So I can't give you a lot of detail on the Middle Cove Ferry, but what I can tell you is that the province and the municipality have submitted a joint application. We are working diligently with the federal government around some of the requirements that are needed for the formal approval and announcements. So I can't get ahead of that. You know, so that work is ongoing. I think that, you know, we'll be in a position with the three partners to give more information soon, but right now we can't really say too much. We're just at a place where we're still working with the federal government, but I can tell you a lot of work is happening. We meet pretty much on a weekly basis with Infrastructure Canada and with our partners. So our partner is HRM. It's a pretty substantial project that would be moving forward in the municipality. But Emily,
Ms. Nicol?
No, it's okay.
Emily Nicol?
No, it's okay. No, I was just looking.
Thank you. When the honourable member chairs a committee, he can chair it the way he wants. What we do find is that MLAs frequently have interjections, and I do that for both sides. So, Emily Nicol.
In the essence of time, I said I was just going to ask you to confirm that the $3 billion fund that that Mr. Peck referenced, the ferry will be part of that.
So
COO Saurette?
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you for the question. It's not actually. So the funding for the Milco Ferry Terminal, there's two phases to it. So what was announced previously would have been the design phase of it, and then we haven't announced the construction phase. So that's the larger. That's actually coming out of the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. I do want to go back to the question that you had asked Mr. Peck around funding and transit. A lot has happened in HRM, and a lot has happened around rapid transit. Through ICIP, we've invested, if we consider the Mill Cove, almost $500 million. The province has contributed about $140 million, and that's going to go over 10 or 11 years. There's a lot of work happening with the municipality around their transit. Mr. Peck mentioned the next suite of funding, which is the permanent public transit. It's actually very exciting. It's a different type of program. We're going to see some allocation, which is what ICIP, where there's dedicated funding to municipalities that have transit systems. There's going to be more dedicated programs or direct apply programs like we've seen in the past. And then we've got this other pot of money, which is what they're calling regional planning. And it's really putting provinces in a place where they are not thinking in silos, or they're, so, and, we are looking at transit in Halifax, but we are looking at transit an hour outside of Halifax, because we know that's where people are, and we have to think differently. And what's traditionally maybe here, and, we're looking at other modes of transit as well. I'm sorry, I'm excited about some of these programs that we've been involved in, and it's not just around rapid transit, it's not around electrification. We also have AT. There's a lot of investment that has gone in AT as well, in the province, in HRM. There's a lot of good stuff happening around transit.
MLA Nicol, you have under 8 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I've been watching the clock.
Yes.
And so I appreciate no interference in the conversation, and thank you for that, because I mean, as someone who grew up in Cape Breton and took the Acadian bus lines to Halifax every day, it's, not every day, on weekends to see my parents, but it is encouraging to see that you're looking beyond that. But I also, so now I'm going to move into, because this is all about infrastructure at the end of the day, and so I'm going to go into the housing question, because I know from experience that houses where water and sewer is provided is where we're trying to densify. But there's only so much capacity in wastewater. And so therefore I just wondered if there was going to be some ability. We heard it from Bridgewater. They want to increase the housing, but there's only so much capacity for wastewater. And I do believe that Halifax Water is approaching a very serious capacity issue where water and sewer is provided. And then there's all the upgrades that have to be done to wastewater plants as well. So I just wondered if there was going to be some cohesive plan to sort of help with that infrastructure and to help Bridgewater as well with regards to funding. And why is the government not consulting per se with municipalities when making big announcements with regards to, we're doing the housing project here, but we hear from residents that are saying, but there's no capacity for traffic, there's no capacity for wastewater. So I'm just wanting to get an understanding of what is the plan going forward as we knock down the silos between municipalities and the province.
Deputy Rafuse?
Certainly, the capacity concerns are not unnoticed. We actually, as I said in my opening remarks, we acknowledge that there are, in certain places in the province where there are issues, but as municipalities plan their growth, the capacity of their water and their wastewater systems is a consideration on which they include in those planning strategies. When there are identified capacity risks, like has been identified in Bridgewater, there's ongoing conversations with them about that, about what needs to happen to facilitate the growth. Certainly, there is an ongoing ongoing application with Bridgewater on that, and with other areas. When we announced that we were doing a public housing initiative in Bridgewater, we actually, before we announced the exact location and commenced any constructions, we had a fulsome discussion with Bridgewater about their capacity and where should it be located on some various sites within that town. And we wouldn't proceed until that assurance was provided. Having said that, we are reaching out to municipalities, and we are going to launch a more comprehensive an assessment about the needs of each municipality, so that will help them guide. They have done that on their own. We're going to continue to coordinate and facilitate that with them. And from that, there are various grants and programs, both of ourselves and with the federal government, which allows municipalities to apply for those expansions. And I mentioned a few of them in my opening remarks. We're actually right now in the process of evaluating the latest program called, and it was announced in the fall. There is, by the application size of things, there is a great demand out there, and we're seeing what we can do to address that demand.
MLA Nicol, 3.5 minutes.
Yes, and where to go from that? Because I know you referenced, finance grants, municipal finance grants. I don't think HRM is involved with that, and I'm trying to you also mentioned the ICIP program, but when in your opening, what we have printed, it said that you will be bringing 222 significant infrastructure projects to life, but in your speaking notes just now, you said 140, not 222, so I just wondered why the discrepancy.
Deputy Rafuse?
The ICIP programs, that program is fully allocated, and that's the number of programs that have been launched through that. And other numbers I reference were on additional grant programs that we have ourselves as a province.
MLA Nicol?
So, and what I would get to, like when it comes to, is the government going to fund upgrading the desperately needed infrastructure such as wastewater? I don't believe I heard you say that. Like you're going to work in partnership, but are you going to actually help individual municipalities, including HRM?
Deputy Rafuse.
The recent program we announced, the Municipal Capital Growth Program, which was in the fall, we participate in that up to 50% of the cost of those projects. So we do participate in all those things. We have allocations as well, which have different ratios. But when we do these things, we always participate.
MLA Nicol?
I'm going to switch to Build Nova Scotia because he kind of looks like he wants to speak. At the end of the day, we know, like I said, I travel all over the province, and the internet service is not great. And I just wondered, you were before Build Nova Scotia was created, Develop Nova Scotia was tasked with, improving the internet services across the province. Where is that now?
CEO Benoit.
Thank you very much for the question, and I'll try and keep this succinct, but also manage my facial expression so that we don't look like we have any confusion. Thank you very much for the question. This is a very exciting program. The internet program is crucial and essential to the livelihood of every single Nova Scotian. And you're quite right. Develop Nova Scotia prior to Build took on that role of being the organization that would oversee, monitor, and mentor. And Build has assumed those responsibilities since its creation on the 1st of December 2022. Like CEO Peck, I'm blessed with an amazing team within the Build community, within the Build Nova Scotia Corporation, and so very fortunate to have these very skilled people working on behalf of Nova Scotians every single day. The internet program started with 103,000 underserved areas, civic addresses, and we have moved to 10,000 remaining in 2024. We had a goal, the program initially had a goal of 95% coverage. We are currently at 97% coverage, with 99% if you include the satellite rebate program. And it is really important that we get the word out that those who are waiting for the fiber solution are eligible for a satellite rebate.
Order. Time has, for questioning by the Liberal caucus has elapsed. We will now move on to the NDP caucus. Time is 9:28. You have until 9:48. MLA Lachance.
Okay. So thank you very much for everyone being here. I have a number of questions, but I actually wanted to start with sort of a late breaking news. But so today HRM issued a notice that they will be giving notice to vacate information and notices to folks living in tent encampments in a number of spots. And you know, with the guarantee that there will be an equivalent amount of shelter, appropriate shelter, available to folks, that there's something to offer folks, that there will be transportation and supports offered. So I know this is not all in your department. I'm wondering if you can give us, Deputy Minister Rafuse, if you can tell us a bit about how your department is going to be working with the Department of Community Services and with HRM in the sort of medium and long-term addressing of the real housing needs that people have in this city.
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you. And yeah, you are correct on the that we're not the primary lead on this file. It is DCS from a provincial perspective, but we do work with our partners and DCS, helping those that are homeless or living rough. Our role in that regard is kind of twofold. On the shelter side of the response, we do participate with the ability to purchase like the tiny homes, the shelter, the pallet homes. We do participate in that. Community services leads on the location, the wraparound services, and the supports provided to the individuals. So we don't involve ourselves on that aspect of it. Moreover, is that the department does have a role on providing or incentivizing affordable housing. So in providing, obviously, we have public housing. Public housing is probably the most, as I say, deeply affordable housing that there is. And although we do have a wait list for that area, those folks that are, we do have priority access, and homeless individuals are part of that priority. To be clear on that, though, that public housing is not a good option for someone directly from living rough to public housing. There's an intermediary step that through a structured shelter process, where services are provided to those individuals who may make them a better candidate to them be more successful in public housing. Moreover, again, on the affordable side of the house, we work with not only private developers to provide them an incentive to allow units or partial units in their multi-unit buildings to make them affordable. We do have a program called the Affordable Development Housing Program that will provide a forgivable loan to the developers to maintain units at an affordable rate for a defined period of time. In the not-for-profit sector, where we're probably more active, we do have relationships with a number of not-for-profit organizations, not only to allow them to build the capacity to become something which they previously probably were not, and that would be property managers and the like. We have some funding for allows them to develop that capacity, and as well, they can also participate in a program which would defray or the costs through a forgivable loan process that would make units affordable. Those we have a minimum amount that needs to be affordable, and that is really geared to the average market rent in the area in which that's being built. But when we're working with those organizations, they tend to be I would call it more on the deeply affordable aspect of things, because there's no profit motivation that we have to deal with.
MLA Lachance.
So what I'm trying to do is understand sort of the walkthrough from the folks that we, know are in tent encampments right now in HRM. I've always said I'm always concerned by both the lack of resources and the type of dialogue that sometimes happens around folks who are living rough, that there's lots more people who are unsafely housed, who are staying in unsafe situations because they understand that there are a few other options, and we know, we've heard this from a lot of transition houses across Nova Scotia, that they know that people are staying in situations of domestic violence. So I think there's the point in time count that we know what we hear from service providers. And so the walkthrough from who we know needs appropriate shelter to the tiny homes and pallets. So perhaps you can give an update on the timing of those. So it's February 26th, the date that HRM is giving people to vacate. Will tiny homes and pallets be available for folks? And then sort of what numbers are you working with from living in tent encampments and living in tents to tiny homes and pallets? That you've made the very good point that there needs to be supportive and transitional housing. So what numbers are we working with in this province? Like, what do we have? What do we need? And what is your role in providing those? And then we can get on to the affordable housing in a minute.
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you for the question. Those numbers are best answered by the Department of Community Services. We help them provide structured shelters or structured units. We are not, nor do we, we're not the one who contracts those service providers. They're the ones that supply supportive services. They're dealing with those individuals through those agencies. So I wouldn't have for you a number to deal with. When they'll come to us when there's a need and to say, listen, can you do this, or can you help us out with this shelter, or there's a possibility to hold some people in a public housing unit. That's where we get involved. But if you want to understand the actual need and what goes on, what happens from the transfer from a tent to a shelter, I think it would be best to ask Department of Community Services that.
MLA Lachance.
And so just for clarity's sake, so how many tiny homes or pallet homes is your department involved in providing in the province in this year?
Deputy Rafuse.
We provided the funding for the purchase of the pallet homes, and we provided the funding for the development of the tiny home and that's currently slated for Sackville. We funded those.
So I didn't hear an answer about the number.
Sorry, I didn't bring my housing numbers with me, but I can certainly get that for you. But I believe that the number of pallet homes is public. I just didn't bring it with me. The tiny home development in Sackville is under that 60-unit range, but I forget how many individuals it will host. And it won't be, I do know that I've seen the design, and they are attempting to configure it once they're allowed to start construction. They'll try to configure it to put as many units in there that will be single and double units, along with a unit that provides services to the clients that are there.
MLA Lachance.
And maybe just a little bit further down the continuum around housing. In terms of the incentives with private developers for access to a forgivable loan for building affordable units, how many affordable units, by your definition, have been created through that program to date in Nova Scotia?
Deputy Rafuse?
I'll get back to you on that. Sorry, Madam Chair. I will get back to you with the numbers that have been developed to date. My more recent figures are around how many have been we've committed to, and I'll also provide you that number because the construction process takes longer. When we enter into an agreement, it is for that next phase of constructions. We'll provide these many dollars with a commitment to maintain a certain percentage of those, and that's really the number we're looking. We kind of measure, knowing that it goes towards the goals of having affordable units. But I'm sorry, I did not bring that number with me.
MLA Lachance. MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you. I'm going to switch gears here and talk about the municipal capacity grant funding. So with the change that happened in the last legislative session around the funding formula, I'm wondering, so notwithstanding the 5-year top-up to municipalities, how many municipalities will be receiving less in municipal capacity grant funding under the new formula? And if someone can provide us with a list of which municipalities and how much less they'll be receiving.
Deputy Rafuse?
Thank you. I'm going to defer that question because of that level of detail. I'm just wondering, is it to Rebecca? Sorry, still getting to know my department.
Director Doucett.
Thank you for the question. There's 17 municipalities that would be receiving less funding than originally through the original formula to the total of $3.069 million. And we can provide you with a list.
Thank you. MLA LeBlanc.
That would be great, thank you. So, and I'm just wondering, so now, withstanding the 5-year top-up, what is the plan for the municipal? So, is it true to say, or is it correct to say that those 17 municipalities, they're all getting some kind of top-up help? And for them, what is the plan for after the 5 years? Is there, or what is the planning process, I guess?
Deputy Rafuse. I will always go to the deputy.
Yes,
I'll be looking for you. If you want to point to someone else, that's where I'll go. Okay. Deputy Rafuse.
Well, the answer is that they've been given the top up for a number of years to allow them to plan for, and to adjust to the new reality, and then that's what they'll have to do.
MLA LeBlanc.
So they are responsible for figuring out their finances for after that time, like to the transition to the lesser amount of money, but is there any support being provided to help with that planning, or is there any relationship between the province and the municipalities in that planning process?
Deputy Rafuse.
So that's why there is a top-up to allow that time, so it allows them to plan. But certainly we have ongoing discussion with municipalities through their administrators and through the NSFM about the state of their finances, and that'll be a continuing dialogue and a continuing conversation. But the cap-up over the cap of the number of years, the top-up, sorry, was to allow them to adjust, so it wasn't a sudden amount in which that could have shocked them a bit. It was allowed them time to plan.
MLA LeBlanc, just over 7 minutes.
So what was the impact on municipal finances? I mean, obviously, probably a positive impact, but and the well-being of the one-time top-up to the grants in 2021. How was the doubling amount determined for that particular year? And what was the thinking that went into that?
Deputy Rafuse.
I'm going to ask my associate to answer that because I wasn't here at the time.
ADM Pottie Bunge.
I wasn't there at the time either, but my understanding is that
ADM Pottie Bunge. Sorry, we're just waiting for the microphone to come on. One over, please, to Ledge TV. There we go. Thank you.
I wasn't here at the time either, but my understanding is the formula that that is applied to the municipal capacity grant program was the same that was used in 2021 to double. So the distribution was based on that formula.
MLA LeBlanc.
Can you make any comments about the impact of that one-time top-up, one-time doubling?
ADM Pottie Bunge.
Well, my understanding is the most significant investment that's been made since like 1995. So it was quite a significant investment in each of those municipalities for that period of time.
MLA LeBlanc.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. I'm wondering about, when you double, when there's that kind of money provided on a one-time basis, and then not, obviously there's a recognition that the municipalities needed that significant investment, and so was it earmarked for particular infrastructure that was just like a one-time spend, or is it to help with operating costs, and how, without that massive investment, how are municipalities able to, move forward with, going back to the status quo, as it were? Any thoughts on that?
Just over 5 minutes. ADM Pottie Bunge.
So I would say that after the initial doubling, the next year, there was a grant program that was launched, which was the Sustainable Services SS Growth Fund, which contributed money towards the infrastructure development for municipalities. And then this year, we've launched the Municipal Capacity or Capital Growth Program, which again is a doubling. It's at 32.4 million, and it's a matched fund, so it's 50-50. So that equates to over 60 million in funding for infrastructure projects across the province.
Emily LeBlanc.
Great. One of the criticisms of the new funding agreement is that while granting amounts were redistributed, there wasn't any overall increase to the fund, like the overall fund. And so one of the recommendations presented to the province from municipalities was a $15 million increase. Was that considered? Was it crunched down to see if it was possible? And why was the recommendation not accepted?
ADM Pottie Bunge, 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So there, I think you're talking about the new service exchange agreement, and so there are 6 elements to that. So there is the contributions to corrections that the province is going to take over. There's the contributions to public housing that the province is taking over. There's also looking at obsolete schools prior to 1981. So those will come back to the province with the municipalities having the first right of refusal. All of those will contribute dollars to the municipalities. There's also 15 million in infrastructure funding. There's looking at that grant so that's part of the service exchange as well as a program for roads.
Emily LeBlanc.
Thanks. And does the exchange account for inflation? Or the exchange agreement account for inflation as we move forward?
ADM Pottie Bunge. Oh, Deputy Rafuse.
So certainly, if you look at the costs that the province is picking up, those are costs that will continue to grow. So if exchange hadn't happened, those costs would have grown for the municipality. So in fact, you could say that inflation is built into them. It'll be just more money than they'll save than they otherwise would have.
Emily LeBlanc.
Great. Can someone provide an update on similar discussions taking place within the HRM? So specifically the changes to the corrections and housing costs. Will they see the same tax savings for residents of the HRM on April 1st, the April 1st timeline as the rest of the province?
Deputy Rafuse.
Certainly, thank you for the question. As you realize, that HRM was not included in the service exchange that was announced in the fall. There are ongoing discussions with the municipality about that, how that could look. There's no final decision on that. There's pretty clarity about where HRMs would like this to go, and we kind of work through that in conjunction with a number of different conversations we're having with them.
Emily LeBlanc, just under 2 minutes.
I guess I'll just switch gears again really quickly. In the HRM right now is having discussions about reworking the center plan with, mixed opinions from all over the HRM, but it's about building density. I'm wondering, with the change that happened last year, giving the minister more control over development, if the staff recommends, the HRM staff recommends the development, the redo of the center plan or the additional density, is that something that the minister will approve, de facto, or is that something that the minister could have influence on changing, or, how will he relate to those changes or those proposed changes?
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you. Certainly, obviously well aware of the changes that HRM have out for consultation. We were in conversation with them on those things, about things that the province would like for them to consider. Obviously, density being the number one thing. The legislation does allow the minister to approve those. It's not that he must approve those things. He'll take that into consideration, plus anything else that may come out from the panel that may be to work in conjunction with the recommendations that HRM have out there. As I say, he's aware of those changes, that what has been what's out for consultation.
Order. Time for NDP questioning has elapsed. We'll now move on to the PC caucus. It's 9:48. You have to 10:08. MLA Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a great conversation, and it's always fun when we can talk about growth, that's for sure. I'm going to maybe switch gears to Department of Public Works and just a couple of questions around collaboration. We talked a little bit about the work with federal partners, municipal partners, and that work together for different projects and large projects. I was working with the Cambridge Interchange, I know with Ms. Saurette and the deputy for over the last few years on the that project, and got a chance to understand the workings between yourselves and the federal government, and you know, how we try to leverage the dollars from the federal government. Could you talk a little bit, not about the process directly about getting funding every bit of the application, but maybe just talk about in general what the department is doing to get the most we can from the federal government? I don't know.
Deputy Hackett?
I'll start, and then I'll pass it along to Ms. Saurette. So, with regard to all infrastructure programming, it doesn't matter if it's highways or municipal or whatever's the federal government's able to give out. Our staff, mostly at Public Works, they look at all the programs that are submitted or put on the table by the federal government for whatever years they are. And what we try to do is work with our municipal partners, work with our other government departments, and try to leverage those programs as much we can as we can. We ask for for projects to be put forward based on the program that comes out, and then from there we sort of evaluate them and try to put them forward to the federal government. So there's a variety of different programs that are available. Some are small, some are larger, but what we try to do is look at them individually at the program and see where it best fits for both the municipalities and for the other government departments. And I'll let Diane speak a little bit more about the actual details of some of the programs.
COO Saurette.
Wonderful question. Thank you so much. I can talk for the rest of the time here on the work. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that there's a lot of programs out there, and we hone in on the infrastructure programs. So, and they provide a lot of funding to provinces and territories. Our team, and it's quite a collaborative. It's not just Public Works, it's Municipal Affairs and Housing, Natural Resources. We work closely with Communities, Culture, Tourism, Heritage, and other government departments. But the programs come at a cost. We leverage the money, and that means government has to be committed. And so we've been very fortunate over the last few years, and again with this government, that part of the mandate is to leverage as much as we can for Nova Scotians. And we've been very successful at it. There's different types of programs out there. There's allocation-based programs. There's direct apply programs. Allocation-based programs we administer. We understand the priorities. We get to pick the projects. And the direct apply programs are competitive, merit-based. So municipalities can apply. The province can apply. So there's a variety of different programs out there. We have an inventory, and we're constantly looking to see what's there. We understand the priorities of government. We understand the priorities of our colleagues, our municipalities, other jurisdictions. The programs are vast. The funding, how do I want to say this? We have projects that are still ongoing from New Building Canada Fund. So they're multi-year projects, significant significant projects. So we're dealing with New Building Canada, investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. The member had mentioned Cambridge Interchange. That came from the National Trade Corridors Fund. We have projects under the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, Royal Transit Solutions Fund. I can go on. And I want to give some numbers because, again, it comes down to government and its commitment, because for us to leverage, we have to come forward with funding. It's not free money, and so it means that, you know, we can get federal funding, but, you know, 9 times out of 10, a provincial contribution has to come to the table to be able to leverage that, as well as our partners, whether it's a municipality or nonprofit. Under ICIP, we were able to leverage all of the funding. It was $840 million. It was almost $2 billion of infrastructure in our province. The province was close to $800 million of that, and the rest came from municipalities or nonprofits. We've got Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. We've leveraged $85 million of that. National Trade Corridors Fund, we've leveraged almost $200 million there. Green and Inclusive Buildings, we've leveraged just over $50 million. And the Royal Transit Solution Funds, which really goes to support community transit in 22 areas of our province, almost $12 million. So they're exciting, but a lot of work, and we deal with many, many partners. I think it's also important to understand that this is, although the province is a proponent, we're a small proponent. We're more of a funder to be able to leverage. Most of these programs are in our communities and in our municipalities. They're community assets. The province doesn't own the assets, right? So it doesn't mean that we're not a proponent for some of these programs that we apply to when we understand our priorities, but a good lying share of the money and these programs go out into our communities. So we're having a good time. Yeah.
Emily Palmer.
Yeah, you're having a good time. That's good to hear. That's good. Well, and you answered one of my next questions about direct in the amount of money, and so you answered a lot of that with your answer to me there. Thank you. So I'll shift back quickly to municipal affairs and housing. In the 22-23 Departmental Accountability Report, it states that municipal affairs and housing commits to the delivery of federal funding and provincial programs. The business plan update states that the department continues to deliver programming and grants to municipalities. Can you tell us about about how you're doing this, and it's public accounts, so, and how you provide accountability measures for that, if you could, please.
And
the deputy, I guess.
Deputy Rafuse.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Stuckless to answer that question, please.
Director Stuckless.
Thank you very much. That's a great question. We are the municipal infrastructure team at Municipal Affairs and Housing. So this is what we do. This has been around since before I started 15 years ago, and will continue after I'm gone. So I'm proud to say our team administers a lot of funding from a lot of areas. Some are provincial, some are FedProv, some are federal. We have six annual programs directed at infrastructure from the provincial government, the Provincial Capital Assistance Program, the Municipal Innovation Program, the Flood Risk Infrastructure Investment Program, the Beautification Streetscaping Program, the Community Works Program, the Sustainable Services Growth Fund, and now the Municipal Capital Growth Fund as well. Those all told quite a bit of money every year. Last count, we are currently have 500 active projects right now in communities across Nova Scotia. So combine that with the federal provincial programming. We have the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, as Diane Saurette so aptly described that program. We're a key partner in the delivery of those programs, as well as the Canada Community Building Fund, which is $60 million approximately per year from the federal government, transfer-based, that goes out via an allocation formula to our municipalities. So with that context, the accountability, that's a lot of programs, that's a lot of projects. So having our fingers in all those pies, we take it very seriously. We have a team of engineering staff, coordinators, pardon me, and financial staff All of those programs have requirements, differing requirements. Some are reporting requirements on what they spent the money on. In all cases, there's an agreement, a contribution agreement, which we have to make sure that they adhere to. I know it's nice to have the announcements, but that's when the real work starts at the community level. So we have to ensure that municipalities and third-party entities are meeting the requirements of the agreements. That is done through, first off, communication, making sure that we have kickoff meetings, program announcements, making sure we have project-level meetings with the teams to make sure that they understand their requirements and what we can do to support them. We utilize our email for communications just so that they don't have one person call waiting on a call back. The whole team gets all questions so we can respond accordingly. We have claims adjudication. Claims come in. We need to have the financial team review it to make sure it's in line with the scope of work. That's being done. The engineering team does a second set of checks, and then it will come up to senior to release the funding. We're involved in audits. Some of the programs have annual audits. Some of them have midstream audits if they're 5 to 10-year programs. We're accountable to all of those. We ensure progress updates. We do that 3 times a year, as well as cash flow updates. So we have to keep our provincial government and our federal partners informed of progress in all things. We're also there to support municipalities in any questions or concerns that they have. In today's climate, costs are escalating. So part of our role is to help right-size projects, to help mitigate the risk, to get them through, to make sure that the projects, once they're announced, make it all the way to the finish line, and we actually see the good work in Nova Scotia.
MLA Palmer.
Thanks for that, and I will defer to my colleague, MLA Barkos.
MLA Barkos.
Thank you, Chair. So to my understanding, this one's for Public Works. The first twinning project, which is Highway 104, was completed both on time and on budget. And as we continue to have these twinning projects to both make it safer for our travelers, but also access to municipalities, I'm wondering if there's any lessons learned that we could carry through to other twinning projects.
Just over 8 minutes, Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, there's lots of lessons from the past that we've learned from our projects, and we've done a lot of twinning over the last number of years, and probably the last 25 years since I've been here. Certainly the way that the government is progressing, and the previous government's progressed in twinning by taking the action of continuously twinning the highways to those destinations, like going to Bridgewater on the 103. We were trying to finish off on the 101, and then the 104 going off to the Causeway, as well as the 107 here in the city. Those are sort of the bigger priorities that the province is looking at right now, and those were announced in the 5-year plan, I think in 2022, 23. And so they'll be starting in the next couple of years to get going. But on the lessons learned part, I mean, there's a couple of things, I guess, which we didn't realize we'd come up against here in the last little while, and that's why we haven't quite finished the 103. We're probably about 500 meters short, and we'll hopefully get that done here this spring. But the labor shortage that we have, the materials issues that we have, and we put these projects out all at once in 2017, which was a good idea at the time. But the big problem, we didn't realize we were going to run up into the staffing shortage, material shortage. So. But at the same time, they're needed, and it's a safety issue to get these done. So staggering them a bit better, coming out the door a little bit differently, and trying to get them, the completion dates not all in the same year, which is a good idea. As for the 104 project, which was, as you said, completed on time and on budget, it was a P3 project. If governments, decide they want to do those type of projects, they're big. They take a little shorter time, and they put risk onto the proponent. They're a little more expensive some ways in doing that. But it is one way to complete projects that, to get them done a little faster if they want to look at that. Unfortunately, I think in this environment, the current financial environment, P3s are probably not the most lucrative way to go for both the province and the proponents. So they're not quite as attractive as they were at one point. But hopefully the interest rates come down and the inflation becomes sort of more sustained. And maybe that's some way we can look towards the future. But I think the big thing that the big learning thing right now is, try to stagger these projects out and look at all the opportunities that we have. We did P3s, we've done design builds, we did design bid builds, and just, look at each one of them as we put them out the door to make sure we get the, the quickest way to get them done, the best way to get them done, and the most efficient and economically way to get them done. So there is quite a bit we've learned over the last 7 years.
MLA Barkhouse.
I bet there is. I bet there is. So my next question is for DMAH. So I'm interested in the reporting on the department. The department, provides about the municipalities. And we like to call it the house, but it's actually financial condition indicators. I'm wondering, can you tell me more about these indicators and what they use it for?
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you. That's a great question. I'm going to start off and then maybe hand it off to Ms. Doucett. But I'd say, the house is a good analogy. These indicators, the graphical representation of these indicators are a great way to see at a snapshot about how a municipality is doing. It's a robust analysis of 12 indicators, which you can look at and say whether or not there's an issue that a municipality should be dealing with. I'm going to leave it to Ms. Doucett to go through those for you so you get a sense about what the 12 are and where they are in the house, because it's great information not only that for ourselves but for the municipalities to use comparisons and to indicate borrowing eligibility or other kind of stability issues.
Director Doucett.
Thank you for the question. Good financial management is one of the cornerstones to the success and continuity of any municipality, and ongoing performance evaluation and monitoring is really important to assess whether the municipality is improving, maintaining its stability, or is facing some challenges. To assist municipalities in evaluating their performance and to provide a general overview of municipal financial condition, the financial condition indicators, or as we like to call it, FCIs, were developed jointly between the department, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, and the Association of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia. As the deputy mentioned, the FCIs are a collection of 12 indicators that measure the potential risks to a municipality's financial sustainability. And the FCIs are really an early indicator of risks that allow the municipalities the opportunity to start discussions about how to address challenges before they develop into issues. FCIs are, as the deputy had mentioned, graphically represented in the form of a house, and the house is organized into 3 dimensions. The first dimension is the base. The base has 3 indicators that provide a foundational analysis that focus on the stability of municipal revenues and where the municipality receives their revenues from. So, for example, how dependent is a municipality on a single business or institution for its tax revenue? Is the municipality's tax base able to cover the cost of municipal programs and services? And these indicators are influenced by external factors that municipalities may have little or no control over. The second dimension is the structure, and that focuses on the management of the municipality. These 5 indicators focus on how the municipality spends its money and manages its finances. So, for example, how well is the municipality collecting its taxes? And how much is the municipality saving for future unexpected events? Or how old are the municipality's assets? These indicators are influenced by municipal decisions and operations. Now, the third dimension is the roof. These 4 indicators focus on the ability of management or the municipality, to meet its current and future needs in a balanced and independent manner. So an example of these would be, is the municipality incurring deficits? How reliant is the municipality on other levels of government? And is the municipality saving for future unexpected events or capital projects? These indicators highlight the outcome of both municipal management as well as external factors. Now, all indicators are measured against risk thresholds ranging from low risk to moderate risk to high risk. These thresholds were developed based on jurisdictional scans, literature reviews, and municipal consultations. And I'd like to mention as well that this coming year, the department will be collaborating with our municipal partners to begin a methodical review of the financial condition indicators to explore potential refinements and to try to contribute to an even more robust and insightful framework. And we're really looking forward to beginning those activities in this coming fiscal year.
30 seconds.
Well, I got to
Sorry,
say-
MLA Barkhouse.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that's something when I was a councillor for the municipality of Chester, something we pay close attention to. And maybe on the next round, I'm wondering if you guys weigh one indicator more than the other, but I know I don't have the time, or you don't have the time. So.
Okay, we'll now move on to our second round of questioning. Then each caucus will have 12 minutes. Emily Nicol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my question would be, are you, with regards to housing, like you say, it's very, at the end of the day, we hear from residents, and often when it comes to those living rough, they often wonder if they were living rough on provincial lands, whether it would be moving a lot quicker. Because at the end of the day, the municipalities are being tasked with it, and residents really don't understand or see the great work. And I want to preface it, from my time, as an elected official, I know of the great work that goes on behind the scenes, and a lot of time it's the politicians that have to answer to the questions that may be informed, may not be informed. So I want to thank you for the information you're sharing here today. But I would like to know if you're working with funding the municipalities for more affordable housing units, like the Housing Accelerator Fund. I know that that's going forward right now, and that is specifically, I think, being led between the feds and HRM. So I just wanted to see whether you could elaborate on that, and which has helped, it's helped groups for affordable housing in Nova Scotia, but going forward, like what is the plan?
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the Housing Accelerator Fund actually is not just the federal government HRM. There are other municipalities in Nova Scotia that are eligible for that, and will be announced soon, where they'll have access to the applications of which they put forward on those. I think we participate in a number of ways which addresses housing needs and the affordable housing needs. First and foremost is that, as we've been talking earlier, we provide funding for municipal infrastructure, not just water and wastewater. But it when we participate in those fundings, either jointly with the federal government or with our own programs, with the inclusion of the municipalities, that allows municipalities to either do one, help increase density where they wish to increase density, or to increase their footprint, which allows for more development. And if you recall, in the housing strategy, the focus of the government is to find means to increase supply, and that's one way in which we can help supply. There's many ways which we provide incentive or encourage supply, but it is one way where we allow municipalities the funding to move forward, and therefore that housing developments can proceed. Additionally, within municipalities, not only are we helping with their infrastructure funding, but we're helping them to kind of streamline the processes to accelerate the approval process. You see that predominantly in HRM, but you'll also see it elsewhere within the province, where we'll take steps knowing that there is a need, that we will help them pass some hurdles. Additionally, there are programs, as I mentioned, that are not only available to private developers, but are available to for not-for-profits. And in some municipalities, they are working together on joint initiatives where, through an extension of infrastructure and some funding through our affordable development program, housing units can be made available. You'll see that not only for healthcare workers, but generally for affordable units for individuals. And lastly, we do participate as a landlord in one of the most affordable housing aspects of the province. So that's Public Housing Agency. We have currently over 11,000 units. We have recently announced a build of 222 new units across the province, and possibly more through some innovative projects in certain locations. And we will endeavor, as things allow, to maybe even increase our footprint in that area through modular housing and the like. So those are the ways in which we help municipalities address their affordable housing needs.
MLA Nicol.
Yes, thank you. And the immediacy of all of that, I'm hoping that it's called the Accelerator Fund for a reason. The whole thing needs to be accelerated. And so therefore, like, move quickly on it, because there's a lot of moving pieces, and at the end of the day, there is one taxpayer, and they want everybody to get their act together and work together to address the immediate need for housing in HRM and in Nova Scotia. So earlier it was mentioned in reference to the Municipal Capital Growth Fund about having seen the biggest intake since 1995. Well, I know what happened in 1995. It was the amalgamation of HRM and CBRM, hence the need to have that money provided. So in that regard, there's a new memorandum of understanding for the service exchange agreement with HRM having their own charter. We know that they weren't included in the latest update of the MOU in the fall of 23. So we had heard from the government that they will be in a separate talks with HRM, and they were going to do it soon. What's the status between the provincial government and municipal government on that MOU for HRM?
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you for the question. I think I heard two questions in there before I go to municipal affairs. I mean, certainly a lot of the funding around the Accelerator Fund is actually to incent municipalities to expedite their process, and I think that's great. The development of an area, as you've been a former councillor know, is a very complicated process. And just to give you, I've asked for like a one-pager to show what it takes, because really when you're talking to individuals about how many steps have to happen before a unit is available, it's quite complex. I reference that because I asked for a one-pager, and I think it came back to me in 21 pages. So it's really hard. There is a lot of steps in that, and so I can appreciate the complexities of that. With service exchange, as I said at the time, those conversations with HRM are ongoing. Myself and Valerie are actually conducting those conversations with HRM, with the CAO. We will continue to have those conversations. It's in conjunction with a number of initiatives, and we're looking forward to moving on with that.
5 minutes. MLA Nicol.
Sorry, I use your first.
Yeah. So again, accelerated MOU, 30 years. Still, that is the memorandum of understanding to, so that the municipality itself understands the role that they have to play, whether it's public works, whether it's internet, whether it's housing. But that going forward, I just wanted to ask Mr. Stuckless, if the 500 projects you referred to in communities across Nova Scotia, is that available, or could it be made available to us?
Director Stuckless?
And give us an idea of what one that excites you might be.
They all excite me. To be honest, I love driving through Nova Scotia and just being able to point to my family. We've got a role in this one, we got a role in that one, right? Libraries, rec centers. They don't care about the wastewater so much, but they should, absolutely. So the
Order, folks, just I can't keep up there, so Director Stuckless.
Thank you very much. So thank you for that. So the question on the 500, the list is not readily available for one main reason. 280 odd of those, I say 285, are projects we would have to list. They're ongoing from those annual programs. They're like through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. The second half of that list, about 230 odd projects, are under the Canada Community Building Fund. That's the federal transfer program from the federal government. The last 10 years, they've given $680 million to Nova Scotia municipalities via the province. The reason that's not a readily available list, it's a planned list. So every year they tell us what they plan on doing with their allocation, but it's such a flexible program that they can pivot. So when I checked before this committee meeting, I got a snapshot of how many they're planning on doing, but because they can pivot, it's not a publicly available list, because I'd hate to have an expectation that they're going to do something, and as a municipality can do, they could pivot and go to another priority project at any given time. So we could certainly circle back on that first half of the list if that's something.
Thank you. That would be most appreciated. MLA Nickel.
How much time do I have?
You have 2.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go back to the internet, because as we are trying to grow our population, I know I was on the Halifax Partnership Board for 8 years and sort of realized that the province of Nova Scotia is a wonderful place to live, but a lot of the times it's the internet that's required. People are now working from home, so it's very critical that the internet gets upped, and whether we do actually have the bandwidth that can do that. So therefore, I wanted you to expand on the comments that you made earlier. And when might somebody in Mill Cove be able to work from home?
CEO Benoit.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the question. I just maybe will pick up just where I left off just to get the knowledge of the satellite rebate program out into the public. So anyone who is waiting for the fiber solution is eligible. It's very easy to apply. All they need to go is to our website, and the province will cover the one-time installation cost for that. And then they have the option. When the fiber shows up, they can remain on satellite, or they can move to the fiber in their area. As I was saying, there was 10,000 people 10,000 homes, pardon me, and businesses that remain underserved in 2024, and the plan is to aggressively tackle those. It's not surprising that these are the hardest ones to get to in a lot of cases, and so it does take extra time and effort in order to make sure that the project is viable and that they can get it out to each underserved area. And so we are working very, very closely with all of the partners. So it isn't just the telcos, it's Nova Scotia Power, it's the telcos, it's Build, that are working very closely together and collaboratively together to make sure that we keep these projects on track and that we deliver them. You asked specifically about a specific location. And, bandwidth? Oh, sorry, yeah. And thank you for the reminder. And
Order. Time for Liberal questioning has elapsed. We will now move on to MLA Lachance.
Great, thank you so much. So I'd like to, I'm switching gears, I think, from my colleague to my left, but I wanted to touch base on negotiations and discussions with CBRM. So we know last fall the municipality wasn't pleased with the new funding formula. We certainly had a lot of discussions about that in the House. Have discussions with CBRM about a possible charter continued, and what are the timelines on that?
Deputy Rafuse.
Thank you for the question. Yes, CBRM weren't pleased with it. We're still a little perplexed by that, because this initiative they do benefit from. The conversation about a charter with them has not advanced since that time. I don't think even CBRM has come back into us to say we want to have that conversation at this point.
MLA Lachance.
I mean, I think, I guess I would hope that, those discussions would continue, and you comment on being a little bit perplexed by their reaction, but I think they had some clear ideas of where they wanted improvements, and where they felt that the proposal wasn't going to meet their needs. So, do you think that there is room to move? Will CBRM see a better deal and more capacity to respond to its municipal pressures?
Deputy Rafuse?
Certainly, there's always been a commitment and that ongoing conversations will happen with all municipalities as we go further down the road on service exchange. This is what was able to be accomplished to this point in time. There is a list of items of which all municipalities have put forward that they wish to have a conversation about, and we've agreed that that list will look like. Those conversations will unfold with all municipalities, not just CBRM.
MLA Lachance?
So I'd also like to switch gears a little bit again. So, we are still in the midst of cleaning up from a major snowstorm this past weekend. And, certainly we've heard and seen what's coming out of CBRM, but, this morning and yesterday, the warden for Pictou County was quite vocal about needing more support. And this morning on CBC really placed it in the context of where perhaps he had seen a lack of infrastructure, a lack of equipment, and that equipment was aging. And so, between Pictou County and I think Cumberland County is in a similar situation as CBRM, are you looking into how the province can better support municipalities to respond to climate crises?
Deputy Rafuse?
Certainly within our programming, we do have funding to look at the resilience to climate change and issues. I mentioned the floodline mapping, but other aspects. We work with our colleagues at Environment and Climate Change as to how to advance that. They actually provide us some funding in that regard that goes to municipalities. So there is that ability for them to do the appropriate planning as they go forward to make more resilient municipal infrastructure and the works. When you mentioned aging equipment, I'm not sure which type of equipment you're referring to, municipally owned or provincially owned. If it's provincially, I think I'm going to defer that to Mr. Hackett.
MLA Lachance?
Sorry, maybe I'll just offer a clarification. So yes, so the warden of Pictou County was talking about the fact that there's most of the roads are provincial, and in his view, there's not adequate snow removal equipment, for instance, available now in the county, and that this has been a building crisis and isn't one to go away. So I guess I would invite Deputy Hackett to comment on that.
Deputy Hackett.
Well, so yeah, thank you for the question. So the provincial fleet in our bases across the province are laid out in such a way that they accommodate the amount of kilometers of road per area, and so there's so many pieces of gear in Pictou, there's so many pieces of gear in Annapolis, so many pieces of gear in Lunenburg, based on the amount of roads and also based on the amount of sort of average snowfalls. And so we, to be able to get the roads cleared within our level of service. So we have prescribed levels of service that we post for 100 series should be cleared in 4 hours or so after a storm, and then trunks and roots in secondary, and then gravel roads. So the gear is laid out that way and made up for average snowfall amounts and to get the roads cleared in that period of time. This is a way above average snowfall amount, and this is something we haven't seen, I think, ever before in Cape Breton with this much snow, 150 centimeters in some areas. We may have got up as high as 90 centimeters before, maybe 100 centimeters in the White Lawn, but I don't recall anything of this nature. And so I think think the gear is appropriately allocated, but we, in these situations, and we've done a very good job with our department, have reached out to the private sector, we've reached out to our partners in New Brunswick and private sector and PEI, and we start to bring gear in. And I think that's what you have to do in situations like this. You don't get into a situation where you load up all your gear with the intent of one big snowfall. You load it up for your normal snowfalls or slightly bit worse than normal snowfalls, and then bring in gear as you require it. But this is this is a unique situation that we have that we're working into, and our staff have been going since Friday night in certain parts of the province, 24 hours, and that's operators and mechanics and our supervisors and managers. So it's a very unique situation. As far as the age of the gear, we keep working on bringing that age down. It is old, and but it doesn't. It works well, and we do have. Obviously, it's gear meant for snow removal, so it does break down. And but we do, we do try to go through processes. We get extra money from the government every so many years to advance our fleet, to buy more fleet, to upgrade our fleet. So we could always use more. There's no doubt. But I think what we have right now does a good job on our normal average winters. This is a very unique situation that we're in, and we're working hard to bring more gear into those areas like Pictou and Antigonish, and certainly Cape Breton County that needs it the most to get those roads open ASAP.
Emily Lachance.
And certainly wanted to recognize, we're a province that just relies so much on the work of the plow operators and mechanics. And, I know that, people are constantly tracking, where plows are and when they're coming back and, crowdsourcing information and sharing that online with people to help people know what's been cleared, what might need to be cleared next, that sort of thing. So, certainly, I know, friends who haven't seen their partners since last week and don't expect to see them anytime soon because they're out working and clearing. But you did say that it's old, and you did say that it will break down because snow removal is hard work, especially this time around where, in lots of areas people are talking about it being like cement, so it's an additional challenge. Was a budget request made from the department this year for additional snow removal equipment?
Deputy Hackett.
I think we asked for some additional. I think we did ask for some additional funding, but normally we're running around, I think, about somewhere between $8 to $10 million in our fleet, and we just take the oldest piece of gear out and put new piece of gear in, so it's kind of a rotational thing that goes around to each area. But what we have been very fortunate on in the last number of years, and Mr. Rhett's been involved with this quite heavily, is throughout the year when there's any funding that comes available on a capital side, because this is capital equipment, we've asked finance for additional funding for our fleet, and over the last number of years, finance has come through and advanced some of that work, some of that capital assets. So we've got extra graders, we've had extra plows, we've got extra loaders from that additional funding. So it may not be always built into. We have a fund built into our capital program, but over the last few years, anyway, we've got additional funding from finance as we ask throughout the year and able to purchase it before the end of the fiscal year. So we are getting ahead of where our fleet was at one point. We're certainly getting, their fleet is becoming, average age is becoming newer, and the government has given us additional funding for that over the years.
Emily Lachance. 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. I'll ask this question quickly. The 911 fee that's collected on behalf of municipalities by the province, how is that managed? So is the total filtered back to municipalities, and if not, then where does the rest go?
Deputy Rafuse.
I'm going to have to get back to you on this, so I understand it defrays costs to run the 911 system, but flow back to a municipality, I'm not aware of that, sorry. Yeah, but.
Emily Lachance.
This was based on a question that we had when we had a chance to meet on these issues earlier, and just understanding how that 911 fee is allocated and used. So if you can follow up, that would be great. And similarly, and we may not have time to cover this, so the calculation of Nova Scotia Power's grant in lieu, are these payments, does the province distribute the full amount collected back to municipalities? And is the amount increasing each year?
Deputy Rafuse?
Ms. Doucett to answer that.
Director Doucett? 30 seconds.
Thank you for the question. Yes, NSPI is provided to the province every year as a grant in lieu, and the province distributes that funding back to municipalities fully through 3 programs. And if memory serves, it was about $43 million this year, and it escalates by CPI every year.
Emily Lachance, 10 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now move on to the PC Caucus for their final 12 minutes. And back to Emily Barkhouse.
Thank you. I just wanted to, Director Doucett, ask, because I know with the municipality of Chester, we kind of used all of the indicators. Of course, borrowing power and reserves was high and, whatnots. But do you weigh one indicator more than the other? If so, which ones?
Sorry, and who was that directed to?
Director Doucett, and then I'm going to pass it over to MLA Taggart.
Director Doucett.
Thank you for the question. No, actually, we don't weigh one indicator more than another. The financial condition indicators are really intended to be looked at on a holistic basis, and they provide a picture of the overall financial health of a municipality. It's really important that the indicators be looked at collectively. As I had mentioned before, the indicators are divided into 3 dimensions. The first is the base, which focuses on the stability of municipal revenues. The second is the structure, that focuses on how a municipality spends its money and manages its finances. And the third is the roof, where it holistically measures the ability of the municipality to meet its current and future needs on a balanced and independent manner. Again, the FCIs are not intended to be looked at in isolation, but really they're a starting point for municipal decision makers to identify potential risks to a municipality's financial stability and to identify opportunities for improvement.
MLA Taggart.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to begin with a comment. Deputy Hackett's very well aware of, I'm not shy to make my opinion known at Public Works. And in this particular case, I have got to say that they are doing an extremely great job. And I absolutely know what's going on in Colchester North. And you mentioned, Member Cross mentioned Cumberland and Pictou, which border both sides of Colchester North. And I can understand the frustration by people. I've answered emails last night and then since 6 o'clock this morning. But the challenge that they have with this weather, it doesn't matter how new the equipment is and the job they're doing, as I can't say enough good about them. I just need to get that on the record. And so then I want to move, if you don't mind, if Mr. Benoit would commented earlier about the 10,000 people that still don't have the still don't have the broadband. And apparently that's 2%. I wonder if you could table those documents, because I think those 10,000 people must all live, and maybe what speeds they're receiving, because I think those 10,000 people all live Colchester North. And I was actually part of a committee that negotiated one of those contracts, and I know very well what was in the contract and what's been done. So I'm not sure that everybody's giving you the proper information, sir. So if I'd love to have that, I think our committee's allowed to ask for that. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And I'd love to have that, please. So, but what I really got to get to here is Mr. Peck and rural. And I promise I won't interrupt you, sir. But anyway, so I know that this, regional transportation agency, I got it 100 miles within HRM, and all that kind of thing. I understand that, right? But again, as we go forward and as the population our province increases, and when I was still with Colchester, we were talking about and it sort of got me on the wrong side of them initially, was about density and had to have density to reduce carbon and all this kind of stuff. But I have come to agree with the density even in rural Nova Scotia and certainly locations. But so I guess where I'm going with that is, so what is its government doing or your group doing to support any transportation in rural Nova Scotia? And I know you're only reaching out 100 kilometers, and so are these investment, when you make these investment decisions, are they reflective of the different needs of the urban and the rural settings? So I just wonder how far down that road you've gone, sir.
CEO Peck.
Thanks for the question. Difficult question to respond to, so just bear with me. So you'd reference net zero. Net zero is one of the pillars or foundations of the plan that we're developing. I'd referenced in my prior comments that the plan is due to government in November of 2024. In terms of rural versus urban, so here's what we've done. We've hired 2 consultants to help us develop this plan. The first company is a company out of Toronto. It's called HDR, and they will develop and deliver this plan. And it's also in concert with another consultant group called WSP. And WSP are looking at what I would call the science, or to quote Matt Neville, the quantitative data that is analyzed to determine the movement of people and the movement of goods. And you have to balance that between the rural component within this area and the urban component within this area. So what we'll receive, Mr. Taggart, is a plan that is within that 1-hour radius that will look at the movement of people and the movement of goods, and we'll have a plan that will then be a plan, but then what's really important once you receive the plan is the implementation associated with that plan. And as I referenced, the funding requirements that will be needed and the balance between rural and urban. Currently, and perhaps I'll get my colleague COO Saurette to comment a little more on this, but we also have the community transportation network that's led by Greg Sewell. So there's 22 providers in Nova Scotia. Municipalities look after, I believe it's the door-to-door or the fixed route, and the community transportation networks look after primarily rural Nova Scotia, look after the door-to-door. So what's really important in this plan is that we take in all those components and create a system or network that benefits people or Nova Scotians within the study area. So while there may not be a direct association with transit, as an example, in Middle Muscataubbin on the Barons Road, what that will provide is access to a particular point for residents of rural Nova Scotia, be it through active transportation, be it through vehicular, to a particular point where they can then access transit, as an example. So there will be a direct benefit to rural Nova Scotians within this study area.
MLA Taggart.
Yeah, thanks. I really, I guess I have to maybe confess that, many years ago, early on in my council years, we actually had a study done in Colchester and Truro, and I was one of the councillors that turned thumbs down on it. There's no way that, that we're going to invest that kind of money, and I've since come to realize that it's it's really a community investment. So I think you'll have me as a supporter when you bring that out. Anyway, to Municipal Affairs and Housing. What role does the province play in federal, provincial, municipal infrastructure programming, such as investing in Canada infrastructure programs? And I think I want to throw a tidbit in there about how can you help the smaller municipalities that don't have capacity to write grants all the time. How can you help them? And I think they're desperately in need of that support because often, anyway, so what's your role there? Thanks.
Deputy Rafuse, 3.5 minutes.
Certainly, thank you for the question. Certainly on those federal programs, we work with our colleagues, primarily with Diane Saurette on this large infrastructure programs through Infrastructure Canada. We are constantly in contact with officials, primarily for us would be on the housing and municipal infrastructure components of those agreements. Obviously, where there's a broader mandate, and a lot of those federal programs, of which Ms. Saurette would take the lead, because we work in conjunction with them. You can rest assured that when we meet with them, we are constantly advocating for more funding for the province, more flexibility for our needs, and also we usually try to. Well, more flexibility and to allow them to achieve their goals as well as our goals, I guess is the best way to describe it. And recently, and when the Atlantic Ministers of Housing met with their counterpart, federal counterpart, I don't think every conversation was around what more can the federal government do to support housing infrastructure in particular in the province. In all provinces. There was a commitment from the federal government to move forward. There are some conversations to make some advancements within their existing programming. For municipalities that need help with their application, we've heard that before. There are some resources available at the UNSFM that would allow them to navigate through that process. And as well, we have resources within the department that we could help them do that. If there's a reach out, we will help. We understand a lot of them that are maybe unfamiliar to them, or more applicably, the underlying requirements to do an application might not be there yet. A lot of the new housing infrastructure money that's being spoken about will have to be including a transportation and a housing assessment, or housing needs assessment. So one of the reasons why we did a housing need assessment was not only to fill our understanding about what the need is in the province, but that report is broken down at the municipal level, and it allows them to see what the projections are for the housing needs in their area, and they can use that report to in conjunction with our application for federal programming. So that's another one, but we will continue to help them.
Okay, 25 seconds. MLA McDonald.
So opposite of MLA Taggart, my Public Works always does a great job, and I want to thank all of the ones that are doing their work, because some roads took 72 hours because this snow was unbelievable. The mechanics, the operators, the call centers, they're doing great. Thanks for all the work you're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, MLA McDonald. Order. Time for conservative questioning has elapsed. Would any of the deputy ministers like to make some closing remarks? Deputy Hackett?
No, just want to say thank you to the committee, and thank you, Madam Chair, for having us here today to talk about this topic.
And I think this is probably the first committee where all of the witnesses got to say something. So it's a red letter day. Thank you so much. You're free to leave and go out into the world. We're going to continue on with our committee business here right now. We just have to approve the record of decision from the January 31st subcommittee, which all committee members should have. You were provided with the record of decision. MLA McDonald?
I move to confirm the record of decision for January 31st, 2024 as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. I do believe that we are through. I just should note the motion has been carried. I should note that I take my instructions from the committee. So if an MLA is questioning witnesses and they indicate they've heard enough, that's when I intercede. I don't do it because I want to be mean. I do it because I'm taking my instructions from the MLAs who are speaking. In some cases, they've heard enough. In other cases, I think they are concerned that the witness is waxing poetic and eating up time. And this committee knows that we have seen situations like that where I have had to intercede even without an MLA speaking because an opening statement went for over 10 minutes. So let me just say that if we have any more interruptions like this of committee members interrupting another committee member's questioning and eating up their time, I will be adding time to the question to the MLA who has been interrupted. So I just want everyone to understand where we are with this. I want to be fair to people. We can't have these interruptions. It's not fair. With that, our next meeting date is on Valentine's Day, where we will have a love-in in camera. February 14th, 2024, Office of the Auditor General, the 2024 Report of the Auditor General, Value for Money, Development of Transitional Care Facilities. Any further business? Meeting is adjourned.